Hello everyone and welcome to the Bearded Geeks, the weekly grab bag of topics covering movies, comics, video games and TV. My name is Jages, I'm the Beard Master, and today we're going to talk about Deadpool 2. I don't know if you've heard of it, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen the first one, but we're going to sit here today and we're going to talk about Deadpool 2. I've just been and seen it this afternoon, it's open today. I went straight from work, the movie started 10 minutes after I finished work, so I had to zip up into town to go to the cinema to get there in time, and I made it, no worries. And I saw the movie, and we're going to talk about it right now, right here, right now, today. We're going to skip the foreplay, we're going to tear the clothes off, and we're just going to get down to the business. We're going to get down to the dirty, dirty business. That's terrible, terrible porn music. I'm sorry. So, let's talk about Deadpool 2. But before we talk about Deadpool 2, we'll have to go back to Deadpool. Now, my association with the character and that, if you've listened to the show long enough, you know this about me. I've grown up reading comics, video games, all the stuff we talk about. I've been into all that stuff. I was a Marvel kid. I was mainly Spider-Man. My brother was an X-Men guy. So, we sort of read all these different series and stuff, but we sort of cross-pollinated here and there. Like, I would get some X-Men and stuff, and he would get a little bit of Spider-Man here and there, but not much. But he mainly, collected all the X-Men books. So, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, Generation X, Excalibur to an extent, all these crossovers, all the old trade paperbacks and everything in that. All these books. But one other book that he collected in the 90s, there was I think it was a 96 run when it started, was Deadpool. It was his first, ongoing series. Both him and I bought the first issue, where Deadpool goes to, I think he goes to Canada. I know he definitely takes on Sasquatch from Alpha Flight. It was a really good book. Absolutely, totally overdrawn, 90s artwork, muscles on muscles and gigantic men and ridiculously huge proportions and that. But, it was a good book. It was a really good series. And I think he collected most of it. I collected a few issues and that here and there following. Not every one, but there were some particular issues that I had to get. There was this great arc he had with Ajax, actually. And there's this great panel, I think it's in issue 17, where Ajax and Deadpool are having their final battle and they're underwater and Deadpool just snaps his neck underwater. It's a really cool couple of panels actually. But I've always been aware of the character. I've always known about his fourth wall breaking and that. He's in the comic and he's he knows he's in a comic, he knows he's in that world, but he's still kind of playing along to this story. I think it was in one of those issues as well. I've talked about this before, but in one of the panels, I think Ajax says something to him. He's like, we're going to go do this, such and such. We're going to do something, or something's happened. It's happened just before or whatever. And he's like, no, that happened back in issue 16 or whatever. And he's just totally breaks the fourth wall, knows he's in a comic. And I'm not sure if that actually started there, in that 90s series. Deadpool's total fourth wall breaking, knows he's in a comic, knows he's in a comic book series. I think it may have started there, because I'm pretty sure when Rob Liefeld created him in that, he was more just a straight up mercenary, maybe a bit more wisecracking and stuff. I never really read his kind of original run, sort of with X-Force and stuff, and his first real introduction. But that's pretty much where I came into the character in the mid-90s with his first ongoing series. I still have all those books. I have my own, and I inherited all my brother's books. He tried to sell them to me years ago, and I'm like, yeah, I'll pay you for them. Still haven't. They're all in the cupboard in the next room. But yeah, I love them all. I've loved Deadpool. Very cool character in that. So obviously, when he was coming up to getting his own film with Ryan Reynolds, very exciting prospect. We had that leaked footage, the leaked CG test footage that they did, where it was total CG and whatever, and that the car scene where he drops into the car and have you seen this man, and they fights all the guys in the car. So we saw that leaked footage and that, and obviously when I saw that, I'm like, this is what the Deadpool movie needs to be. This is exactly it. You've hit the nail on the head here. You couldn't do any worse than this, aside from X-Men Origins Wolverine. But it was cool there, Wade Wilson's first introduction into that movie, in X-Men Origins. It was cool, but what they did toward the end of the film, obviously they fucked it. Anyway, so, excited for the first movie. The first movie came along. I think I went and saw it on opening day. I think I saw it with Pat, maybe. Loved it in the cinema. Loved the humor. The humor was just absolutely spot on. The fourth wall breaking. All the jokes in that were nicely spread out and that. It wasn't leaning too much sort of either way. It was exactly what a Deadpool movie should have been and what a Deadpool movie had to be. And that movie was very successful. It was the most successful R-rated movie in America of all time. It made heaps of bank. It had like a $60 million budget, made like nearly $800 million worldwide, maybe more. I think it was a little less though. I think it was like 770 or something like that. But it did very well. So a sequel was a no-brainer. Now, the first film I rewatched yesterday. I think it was the third time I've seen it. I saw it at the cinema. I saw it the day it came out on home release. I bought it. The street release date was broken here, and I just happened to go into one of my like electronics and media shop or whatever one Friday night looking for a movie to watch. And here it was on the standee, like right in front of me as I walked in the door, and I was like, oh, they broke the release date. This is so amazing. And I went in and grabbed it, bought it, went home, watched it. Now, I don't think I've seen it again until yesterday. I watched it again in prep for Deadpool 2 today, and I've said it about that movie before. You've heard me talk about it with Pat and Bob on previous episode. One of the episodes we did last year, we spoke about Deadpool, and that movie for me, I was pretty medium on that movie. Like, the humor in that was there, it was dead on, it was spot on. You couldn't have done it better, like, in that context. But aside from that, like, the humor was just kind of like stringing the plot together, which was very bare bones. It was like a hair strand. It was that thin. The plot was that thin. The characters were pretty much the villains, and that I mean, like the villains and some of the other side characters that were pretty much just, you know, totally inconsequential to the plot. And yeah, just not like handled as well as it could. But I guess you had to do that, like to get this character across. We have to do this humor. We have to try and do it this way so people get to know the character. People who don't know the comics know this character and know what he's about and know what this movie is going to be about. So again, I watched it yesterday, and I still am. I'm pretty medium on that movie. Like, the humor's great. I actually laughed out loud at one or two scenes in that first movie yesterday. But like, aside from all that humor in that, it's an okay movie. Like, it's not bad, but it's not particularly great either, like when you really break it down. I actually messaged the boys this morning on the group chat, Pat and Bob, and I said to them, you know, like, I rewatched Deadpool yesterday, and maybe controversial to say, but I'm pretty medium on that movie. I'm a soft medium, I said, on that movie. And then, like, I find out today that there are actually, like, a lot of people out there who actually don't like the first movie, who think it's just an okay movie, like myself. But yeah, like, I don't hate the movie, but it's a 3-star movie from me. Like, out of a ranking of 5, it's a 3-star movie. It's not terrible, but it's not outstandingly great. But the humor in that was there, and the character I know and I read about growing up as a kid, he was there. That was him on the silver screen, and that was like the best interpretation we've ever had. The outfit was great. Ryan Reynolds was great. Everything was great. Like, when the mask was on, when the mask was off, we had Blind Al in there as well. A character from the comics from that same series, and that they switched up the dynamic a little bit, because in that series, Blind Owl is more of a roommate / prisoner of Wade's. Like, he lives in this house and she lives there too, sort of against her will. But, you know, they get on well enough because, you know, Deadpool's kind of hurting in that series, and he has like angry outbursts at her and stuff. But yeah, they tweaked it a bit for the movie, which was fine, and it works well in that context. But yeah, it's an okay movie. For me, it's an okay film. It's not a bad film. It's just an okay film. So, coming into Deadpool 2, obviously, I'm excited. I'm seeing Cable, which was talked about in the teaser stinger at the end of the credits in the first film. The whole Ferris Bueller's Day Off takeoff with the dressing gown and everything in that in the hallway. So, I talked about Cable. We found out we're getting Domino, played by Zazie Beetz. We've seen the trailers and stuff. We get a lot of the earlier X-Force members, so we get like Shatterstar, who's great, who's like a visually cool character, like on the page, although it looks kind of a little bit goofy, like interpreted onto the silver screen. We get other characters in there. We get like Terry Crews with like Bedlam and Zeitgeist and Vanisher and a couple other characters and stuff. So, obviously excited. Like, all these characters are in it. Like, Josh Brolin, I love Josh Brolin. He looks a pretty cool Cable. Like, the haircut's cool. Like, the weapon's cool. The outfit's cool. And, yeah, generally, like, stoked for this film. Like, but coming into it, I'm like, because I'm so medium on the first film, I'm like, is this going to be better or worse, or just kind of like treading the line against the first film? Like, will it be better on the whole, or will it be worse, or will it be better and worse in different regards? So I went in today optimistic, but, I was kind of like, let's see how far they can stretch this joke, like stretch this character. So I go in, I'm going to keep it non-spoiler, guys, like at the moment, and we're going to tiptoe around it. Might do a rating or whatever, and then we'll go into the spoiler section. We'll talk about some spoilers and stuff, because there were some cool little things in there I want to talk about. So we go into this movie, bare bones plot here, guys. Shit goes bad for Deadpool. He's in a bad place. He goes to join the X-Men, and then he runs into this kid who he has to save because Cable has come back from the future to kill this kid for reasons which I won't disclose. But, and it's kind of up to Deadpool, like, he's going to, like, save this kid, like, save this kid to save himself kind of thing. So, and then we get the X-Force and that in there as well. Let's not forget about them. So, just generally, on a whole, the movie was... yeah, it was good. It was good. I did laugh quite a few times. I had quite a few good laughs and stuff. Yeah, it was good. It was good and not so good. Not as good. Maybe, yeah, it's kind of hard, like, to break it down at the moment because I've just seen it. I've just come so fresh from it. But yeah, it's hard to talk about too without getting into spoilers and that as well. But as it goes, on the whole, yeah, I enjoyed the movie. Is it better than the first one? I enjoyed it more than the first one. There's not really a lot in that first one for me, but I feel like I got more out of this than I did that. But the first movie has strengths, whereas this one doesn't. They kind of like... the first one has strengths that the second one doesn't have, and vice versa. So the second one has more strengths than the first. In that regard, I'm talking about, like, the humor and stuff, because Deadpool is a character who knows he's in a movie. He knows he comes from a comic book, and he's a guy that doesn't really take anything seriously. And obviously jokes all the time. So, when they try to convey, in part, in this second film, a more serious story, is it harder to get behind because the character isn't so serious himself? He doesn't take anything seriously. How can we, as an audience, get invested into a more emotional story when the character himself doesn't take anything seriously? Perhaps for that moment, in the context of the story, he'll take it seriously. But the thing I always loved about Deadpool is that this story is the real story to everyone else, and it's just playing out as it would. And Deadpool's playing out through it too, but he's aware that he is in a comic book and stuff. Although he doesn't bring it up too much, he will drop lines in there as the story goes to remind everyone that he knows. He will throw in some of that fourth wall breaking humor, which I feel in this film, they probably tacked it on a little too heavy. In some scenes in that, it kind of plays out really well, like the pace, like the story's playing out, but then we get a little bit of fourth wall breaking humor in there, just to remind us he knows what's going on, and then it goes on a bit, and then a little bit more here and there. But there are other sections of the movie where it feels like that humor is a bit too heavy. Like, it'll be Wilson drops a fourth wall breaking line, somebody else says a line, and then a bit of an action bit, and then he drops another line, letting you know that he knows, he's in a movie, or he's in a comic book movie and stuff. And then it's not long after that, he drops another one, and it's a little too heavy. Like, I felt like I was getting pulled out of the movie because I knew that, he knows he's not in the movie. It's kind of hard to explain, but not really. But I get you guys. You guys are smart and switched on. You guys know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so in some regards, like, the humor in that was kind of a bit too heavy on. In other regards, it was kind of just paced out nicely. I feel like the acts of the film, like the first half of the film and the second half, are a little disjointed and a little unevenly weighted, because obviously Deadpool's having a rough time sort of in the first half of the film, and it's a bit darker and it's a bit more of a, air quotes, real movie, like a regular movie. And, we're playing the story out. It's a little bit more serious. There's the joke in that here and stuff. But then when we get to sort of the halfway mark, it starts to go back to more of a regular Deadpool movie, because Wade Wilson and Deadpool, they're very different, like, in and out of the mask. I got that in the first film. Like, when he was just Wade walking around the house with blind owl. Yeah, there was some of that humor in that there, but it wasn't as silly and over the top like fourth wall breaking humor as he would be in The Mask as Deadpool. So there's a little bit of that there. So it's kind of in the first half, it's a little bit heavier on, but in the second half, it goes to more sort of jokey, over the top, like Deadpool, like more fun Deadpool. But there are scenes, like I noticed, where he did bring that humor sort of into Wade, like when he was out of the mask. There was more of that fourth wall breaking humor and sort of over the top humor when he was out of the costume as well, which was kind of refreshing. There was one particular scene where that happened, and I was like, you're taking it to there now. Like, yeah, I like that. You didn't do that in the first one, but you're doing it here. Like, I appreciate that. That's a little something different. I like new. I like different. That's fine. That's good. That's what I'm here for. I want to be, engaged. I want to see new stuff. I want to see you guys do different things. So that I did appreciate. But yeah, it kind of feels, a little heavier on in the first half, a little bit maybe slower and stuff in the first half. It's a little bit gloomier, but then when we get to the halfway mark, it starts to ramp back up. It's kind of X-Force is being introduced, like he's recruiting for X-Force. It gets a bit more of that silly, lighter Deadpool humor. I will say the jokes are more full-on, more intense, more crass in this. There are a hell of a lot more F-bombs in this one. So many people say fuck in this movie. There's even a C-bomb. A C-bomb gets dropped in this movie. And it's not from Deadpool. Let's talk about some characters. Ryan Reynolds, obviously back as Deadpool, does a really good job. He knows the character sort of inside and out. But, how far can you take that joke? Where he's not being serious and the jokes kind of feel like they're just stitching the story together. Like, here's a story bit to get to this joke, and then ha ha ha, it's real funny, let's get on to the next bit. But Reynolds knows the character in and out, like I said, and he does a really good job. This is like, pretty much like, role of a lifetime for a guy. You just got to run with it, both feet in, and just go with it 100%. Let's see, Josh Brolin as Cable. I really liked Cable. I don't really feel like I got enough backstory in that out of Cable, but that's not really sort of the main focus in this film. Like, we get just enough so we know what's motivating Cable to come back in time and the reason he's after this kid. And it's really Deadpool's movie, so like he plays second fiddle to Deadpool. Everybody plays second fiddle to Deadpool. I really like Josh Brolin. Cable was great. I liked everything about him. I feel like he was probably a little bit more gruff and heavier than the Cable I knew and read about in the comics. But there have been so many different runs and so many different interpretations of the character and that from so many different writers, There's a lot that I haven't read and, you can pick and choose from, and take what you like. But I really like what Josh Brolin did with the character in that. I liked his sort of future tech and stuff. The character looked really cool, especially like when he had scenes with his shirt off. It's cool to see Cable with his shirt off, and you can see like the techno-organic virus like slowly taking over his body. Like you see his like robot arm and stuff, and then you see like the virus just like it's completely changed his like one of his pecs and that, and it's like creeping up into his neck, and it just looks really cool. Like you can see there's a little bit of limitation there in the CG budget. Like it's probably like 95% there, but you can tell there's just that little bit of CG-ness and that to it. I think if they had a little bit more money, they could have spent it on that CG budget. But for what we had, like, it looked great. Like, it looks really fucking good. Like, it's a great cinematic visual interpretation of the character and the virus that's plaguing him and plaguing his body. It looks really fucking good, and I really like that. Yeah, Josh Brolin was great. Loved him. Looking forward to seeing more Cable. Like, I'd love to see more Cable in that, and for sort of Deadpool and him to get more of the kind of buddy cop thing going. Let's talk about Zazie Beetz as Domino. She was the absolute standout for me. She was so good, just so charming and charismatic, and the visual like interpretation of her mutant power. So she has the power to manipulate luck, like in her favor. And there's this line in the trailer and that how they talk about, Deadpool talks about her power as not very cinematic, but you see it in the movie and that, and it looks really cool. Like, she just goes about like doing her thing and all this stuff, like just happens to work out in her favor. Like cars are getting flipped over and someone's about to shoot her and they get crushed or whatever, or she gets flung out of a car and she just happens to land on a soft mattress or something like that, let's say, for example. But yeah, it's a really great interpretation. It's kind of like this whole Final Destination kind of thing. Like a car careens out of the way, like around her, like the brake seize up and it careens out of the way into a lamppost and that falls over and hits another thing which falls over and knocks something over which crushes a guy that's about to shoot her. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's that real kind of domino effect, obviously. Yeah, kind of like Final Destination looking thing. Yeah, it's visually very cool to see that work out in her favor and stuff. Some of the other characters in that we had Julian Dennison in there, who played Russell, Fire Fist. Totally plays it as a Kiwi character and stuff. He was really good. I love him from Hunt for the Wilder People, obviously. Ricky Baker. And he was sort of one of the real main elements of the film, obviously, because Cable's coming back in time to kill him, and kind of Deadpool takes it upon himself kind of to save this kid for reasons we'll get to in spoilers. Who else do we have? We had like Shatterstar, we had Zeitgeist, we had Vanisher, you know, all these X-Force members. We had Bedlam as well, Terry Crews. They're all great for the time and that they were in the movie and stuff. The creation kind of the X-Force team was really cool. You see it in the trailers and stuff. They're going through like resumes and stuff, him and Weasel and that. And yeah, it's really cool what they did with those characters. Shatterstar, like I said, he was the one I was probably most looking forward to. He looks quite goofy, like in the comics and stuff. He kind of has like this padded, like boxing helmet looking thing, kind of like these side face guards that come down the front either side of his face. They have that in this film. You see a little glimpse of it in the trailer, in the background. And there's this one scene, you see him like straight on, you're like, man, that looks pretty cool, and then he kind of turns his head, and you're like, it kind of looks a bit naff, but, you know, they did a really good job. He looks great. Colossus is back. Colossus gets a lot more screen time. We get Teenage Negasonic Warhead, she's back. They're all just as good as they were in the first film, even better. They get a lot more to do in that in this one. Negasonic is it Teenage Negasonic or Negasonic Teenage? I'm forgetting already. No, it's Negasonic Teenage Warhead, that's right. Yeah, all very cool in this movie. They got new outfits and stuff. They look very cool. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, she looks great. Like with the hair and the earrings and like the new outfit and stuff and that. She looks great. She has a girlfriend in this movie, which is great. Yukio, another character from the kind of X-Men lore and stuff. We see a bit more of the X-Mansion and that in this movie and that as well. But yeah, it's a good movie. Is it better than the first one? Definitely. I got a lot more out of it than I did the first film. It does feel strung together though. Like it has that. The first film felt like it moved at a more sort of an even pace. As much as the jokes and that were in there, it started at this point, made its way through, and ended at this point. Like, but this one kind of feels like. We've got all these jokes, like these are the jokes we want to get across, and now let's stitch the story in between that. Like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a scene where they're in the prison? Oh, what would happen? What jokes could we do off that? No, let's write all these jokes. Yeah, that's really cool. Where would we put that in the movie? Oh, let's put it here. And it feels like all these, not all of them, not all of the time. The second half feels a bit more, it flows a lot better. But the first half kind of like, yeah, here's a cool little vignette. Like, let's put that here and let's move on to the next bit. Like, and it just kind of feels like stitched together, like separate, like a Looney Tunes cartoon, like a 10-minute Looney Tunes cartoon, but they're all just like you're watching them concurrently, like they're all stitched together. In that way, yeah, it doesn't feel that, you know, it flows as well as the first one. But I did get more out of this one than I did the first. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, in some ways it's better, but not. And in other ways, it's, yeah. So, I think it will really just come down to your personal opinion. Like, if you like the first movie, you'll dig this one. But if you, like, really, really like the first one, if you think it's a 5-star movie or whatever, or, you know, because everyone's allowed to like what they want to like. That's fine. Just because the first movie didn't work out like 100% or whatever for me, it's an okay movie for me, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you. I mean, you could really get a kick out of this one, or you could maybe not enjoy this one as much as the first one. But I do feel in the first movie that the jokes were a lot stronger. I mean, because these guys, like Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, the guys who wrote Zombieland. They worked on this script for years, and like the two of them have writing credit for this as well as Ryan Reynolds. But you know, it kind of feels like they didn't have as much time. Like, it's good, like the jokes are funny and stuff, but I don't feel like there's as much put into it. Like, it could have been, this movie's 10 minutes longer than the first one, and it could have felt like, you know, you could have, if you just trimmed that joke, you know, trimmed a few of the jokes out, because they're like, jokes are just like bang, 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 like knocking them out like one after the other. And then sometimes we slow down a bit in that, but yeah, the jokes are really kind of like thick and fast, and sometimes it can be a little bit too much. Have I covered everything? I'm rambling here a bit. Let's go into spoilers. Fuck it. We'll go into spoilers, and then I'll come back and I'll give my final rating for the film. So, we're going into spoilers. We're going to talk deep plot and some of the cool hidden shit and stuff and that in there. So, spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. There'll be timestamp below if you want to skip over it. So, the movie starts. Deadpool and Vanessa, they're living happily ever after. They're about to start a family. These goons that Deadpool didn't kill, there was this one guy who's chasing at the beginning of the film, didn't get him, comes to his house with a bunch of goons. Deadpool takes them all out, but then Vanessa gets killed. And then shit gets real moody after that. So then Deadpool's trying to kill himself, and he's trying to come up with these creative ways because of his mutant healing factor. Obviously, he can't die. So he's trying to kill himself to no avail. And then he gets taken in by Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. They take him into the X-Mansion. You know, like, we're here for you. We can be your family if you want. Join the X-Men. Be good. We can teach you, you know. And then after a bit, he reluctantly agrees. And it becomes a trainee member of the X-Men, wearing like a yellow, like, football jersey top with trainee written on the back. It's pretty funny, actually. And then later on, they get called to this scene where Julian Dennison, he's there, he's at this orphanage, and he's going crazy because he's, like, trying to burn everyone. So the X-Men go down there to, like, sort him out, and then they find out that he's been abused. So the guys there, the headmaster or whatever, you know, they've been abusing all these mutant kids, because it's an orphanage for mutants. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. So it's the Essex Corp school or home for orphan bloody mutants, or whatever it's called. So they've been torturing all these mutant kids, and it hasn't gone well, and obviously the kid's really angry, and he kind of wants to get revenge. So Deadpool tries to talk him down. He's like, you're not going to kill these guys. I'm going to kill them. And he kills a couple of them, tries to kill the headmaster and that. And then they both get arrested. They get taken to this mutant prison. We get to the prison, we see, like, Black Tom Cassidy and stuff. We get the massive foreshadowing of the monster in the basement they have there at the prison, like the biggest inmate that they have there. And all the mutants there are wearing these collars. If you see in the trailer, they're wearing like these big collars with like light up, like red lights and stuff and that on them. They're mutant dampening collars. So when those collars are on, it dampens their mutant powers and pretty much just makes them human. So obviously what happens to Deadpool is it dampens his healing factor, and his cancer starts to grow back, and he starts to get sick, and he becomes content with dying because he's tried to kill himself, and he just wants to go and be with Vanessa because he's had like this vision of her earlier in the film. You know, your heart's not in the right place. You can't be with me yet because your heart's not in the right place. And so he's trying to figure out what her message and that was, and he's content to die. Cable comes along, blows up shit, big action scenes, lots of that heavy kind of fourth wall breaking jokes. Like, it's real heavy in the prison section, like when he's finding Cable and stuff. It was a bit too full on. I was like, there was probably like 5 jokes in the span of like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I was like, you probably could have cut like 2 of those out of there and just spaced it out a little bit more. It would have been a little bit better. That's just me personally, though. I felt that was a little bit too heavy handed. After that, they get out. Julian Dennison goes on the run with another character who doesn't get revealed. He teams up with the monster in the basement, and they plan on breaking out of the prison. Because they're not on the run yet. They're still in prison. But Deadpool's gone, and he feels betrayed by Deadpool because he said they weren't friends or whatever because they were locked up in the same prison and all that together. Anyway, so Cable's come back to kill Julian Dennison because he's the reason that his wife and daughter are dead in the future. The grown-up version of himself has come to his home and killed his wife and daughter because he kills the headmaster of the orphanage, and he gets a taste for killing, and then he goes, just like, as he grows up, he just kills and kills and kills, and eventually kills his wife and daughter. So he's come back to kill him and to save his family. So Deadpool decides that he's got to save this kid. He's got to do the right thing, save this kid. That's what Vanessa was talking about. And so he goes to create his own team because he decides he can't do it on himself because all these prisoners are being moved on this convoy and he can't do it alone. He can't beat Cable in that alone. So he decides to build his own X-Force, and the recruitment scene, like Bedlam and Vanisher and all these other characters, Shatterstar and that, they do the parachute drop out of the plane and stuff, and they all die one after the other. Like, Deadpool gets hung up on this billboard, and they all start to die. Like, Vanisher hits some electric wires, and then he, like, zaps, because he's invisible, and then he zaps into visibility, and you see it's Brad Pitt, which was funny. I couldn't tell if it was, like, young Brad Pitt or regular Brad Pitt. I think it was just regular Brad Pitt, but they dyed all his, like, hair and stuff, so he's not grey or whatever. But yeah, it was definitely Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was in the movie. Shatterstar dies. He zips into some helicopter blades. He gets minced up. Zeitgeist falls into wood chipper and stuff. Peter tries to save him, but then gets his arm vomited and melted off, and he dies in that as well. So pretty much all of X-Force die. Bedlam dies. He goes through the window of a bus and dies. So then it's pretty much Deadpool and Domino, and they've got to stop Cable and stuff. So there's this big action bit on the thing. We find out that the monster that Julian Dennison Fire Fist has teamed up with is the Juggernaut, and he looks really cool. He's like big and massive, and he's got like the helmet and shit, and he looks fucking great. CG character, obviously, there's a little bit of a limitation there with the CG budget, like I said, but for the most part, he looks really good, and it's good just to see the character at that scale. And that as well, Deadpool actually remarks, like, he's reeling off X-Men issue numbers. He's like, oh, Juggernaut, you're my favorite character. X-Men number such and such, this such and such. And he's reeling off issue numbers and that, which I thought was a really cool touch. I did miss something, actually. Previously at the X-Mansion and stuff, Deadpool drops another line where, because actually, like, interiors in the mansion and that, they're getting around the mansion. Deadpool's riding around in Professor Xavier's wheelchair and stuff. And he's like, you think the studio would have really, like, cut us a break here and, like, give us more money. He's like, where are the rest of the X-Men? You never see them. And while he's talking, like, looking around, there's this side shot into a door where you see, like, all the X-Men, like Beast, James McAvoy, you see Evan Peters as Quicksilver and that. There's 6 or 7 of them in there, in this room, and then Beast, like, quietly walks over and just, like, shuts the door. So, obviously, these guys were, like, filming the newest X-Men movie with Simon Kinberg and stuff, and they filmed that little scene and that to put in there, which I thought was a really cool touch. So that was a standout of the movie for me, just to actually see the X-Men in, like, an office talking, but then Deadpool's ranting, and Beast just comes over and, like, shuts the door quietly, so he doesn't find out that they're actually there. Very cool touch. I'm sure I'm not the only one who got a kick out of that. Anyway, so Cable turns up at Deadpool's place, says, look, I need your help. I can't take on Juggernaut by myself. You guys release the Juggernaut. I need your help. So they team up. They go back to the orphanage because, like I said, you know, the headmaster of the orphanage is Fire Fist's first kill, and after that he gets a taste for it, which leads him on his destructive path and ends up killing Cable's wife and daughter. So they all team up. Colossus comes as well. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Domino, and that's there. They go. There's this big fight scene between Juggernaut and Colossus, which is really cool. Deadpool actually says, he's like, big CG fight right now, and they have this cool fight. It's actually, yeah, really cool fight. And it goes along, and Deadpool eventually talks down Fire Fist, Julian Dennison, into stopping, because Cable's like, look, I'll give you 30 seconds to, like, talk him down. If you can't do it, I'm going to put a bullet in him and end him. So Deadpool, like, on this big redemptive arc to, like, save this kid. He does his best and stuff. Deadpool actually ends up dying. He sacrifices himself because Cable goes to shoot him when he's going to torch everyone, and Deadpool jumps in the way because he's got the mutant collar and that on. It dampens his powers, and he actually, like, starts to die because he put the collar on to say to Julian Dennison, he's like, look, if you're going to kill anyone, kill me. Just do it. You can't, like, if you don't do it, Cancer's going to do it. He's like, I'm not going to let you kill this guy. You're going to have to kill me instead. And so Deadpool's there dying, and he's there, and they want to take the collar and that off, and he's like, no, look, just let me die. I want to go be with Vanessa. I'm ready for this. I've been trying to do this all movie. And then there's this long drawn out scene of, like, him saying goodbyes and dying, but then he doesn't really, and then he comes back and says more, and then die, and then he comes back, And eventually he does die, and everyone's standing around him, very sad, obviously. And Cable uses his time gizmo to go back in time and change things, because he only has 2 trips. He only had enough power for 2 jumps. So one back in time, and then after he's done the job, another one to jump back to the future to his family. But he decides to go back, and he actually saves Deadpool. He saves his life. It plays out the same, but then he puts a coin in that, which has significance in the movie, and it stops the bullet. And so Deadpool lives. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Like, they tee up a bit of an X-Force thing. So then Cable decides to hang around because he's stuck in the present, obviously. And he mentioned previous that your generation fucked up the planet. And he's pretty much just like, look, I'm going to stick around, make sure you guys don't fuck things up, or things stay unfucked. So after that, obviously, you got to hang around for the end credits. And so we get to the end credits scene, and it shows Deadpool in the expansion with Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio. And she's repairing Cable's time machine gizmo. Fixes it, throws it to Deadpool, and they're like, oh, that probably wasn't a good idea. And then it shows scenes of Deadpool goes back in time to save Vanessa from dying, and then jumps away again. Not really sure if that's actually going to stick, though. I probably imagine that it will. This was a great scene. He goes back to X-Men Origins Wolverine, like the end where the doors open up and Deadpool walks forward and he's got his mouth sewn shut, and before the blades and that come out of his arm. So you've got the footage in that there from that movie, Hugh Jackman, and that's Wolverine. He pops the claws out, and then you see bang off in the background with X-Men Origins. Deadpool goes down with a bullet in his head. Our Deadpool walks in the screen. He's like, sorry. He's like, just fixing this, and just boom, 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 boom. Plants heaps of bullets into fake Deadpool, and then walks off and jumps off back in time. Fucking great scene. Really, really good scene. And then it goes to there's a shot of Ryan Reynolds sitting at his desk, and he's obviously reading a script with a big smile on his face, and then it cuts to the script and it says Green Lantern on the front. Big spray of blood. Deadpool shoots him in the back of the head and kills him. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I think the movie ends. So there's actually some good kind of, spoilery shit in that movie. Some great cameos and stuff. Another great little Easter egg I did notice on Dupinder's cab. He's got a sign on there for Canadian airline, which is called Alpha Flight, which is a nod to the Canadian superpowered team Alpha Flight, obviously, from the comics. And actually, Dupinder himself, we haven't actually talked about Dupinder. He is obviously through the entire film and that as well, but at the beginning, he pretty much announces that, he wants to be a mercenary in that as well. He wants to bathe in Deadpool's enemy's blood and all this sort of thing. And he's going through the entire movie like he wants to get in on the killing action, and he wants to become a mercenary and that himself. So that's kind of funny little subplot in there that plays out as well in the background. I think that's pretty much it for spoilers. I just went through and pretty much just named all the cool shit that actually happens in that movie. So I think I might end it here. So end of spoilers in 3, 2, 1. And we're back out of the spoiler section, so we're back into non-spoilers here. I did enjoy the film. Yeah, let's wrap it up then. Man, it's hard to talk about a movie after you've only just seen it a couple of hours earlier. It's really hard to process it because you haven't had time to process it. So you kind of just recite the movie and go, yeah, that was cool, and this bit was cool, and this happened, and... But on the whole, I liked the movie. I liked it more than the first one. I got more out of this one than I did the first. The first one probably flows a lot better. It's better structured. It's better paced. Whereas this one isn't. It feels like a series of different clips and that just stitched together with jokes. I like the characters in this movie. Zazie Beetz was a massive standout as Domino. More Domino, please. More Josh Brolin as Cable. I would like more Deadpool. Will we get Deadpool 3? They've kind of talked about maybe not. If you have another Deadpool 3, you kind of have to do the same thing again, but in a different way. And it's just aren't we just repeating? They pretty much just repeated a lot of the stuff. Everything gets taken away from Deadpool. He loses his looks. He loses his girlfriend, and then he's got to go through the hard slog to get all that back, to get back to normality, to stop these fucked up guys that have, fucked him over, in the first film, obviously. And to an extent in this one as well. But yeah, I mean, how many times can you do that? Can you just have like a jokey Deadpool movie that doesn't really have any plot? I mean, we've already kind of got that twice. And it's kind of starting to wear a little bit thin. But if you get to a third one, unless you do something drastically different, I think there's a problem of really like wearing it out and kind of maybe ruining the franchise a little bit. So, would it be a better idea to go into X-Force? Maybe, probably. It depends how much money this movie makes. This movie already has obviously an inbuilt audience, and even more so because of the first film's success. Nobody knew, pretty much the movie-going public didn't really know who he was the first go around, so that was a real surprise. So now, knowing how much of a good film the first one was, a lot of those people go back to see this one. But, is it going to bring in more new people and stuff? Only time will tell. Will it make more money than the first one? Maybe, probably. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. Avengers Infinity War is still in the cinema at the moment, so it still has to compete with that a little bit. Obviously, it will take a lot of money away from Infinity War, because it's the new thing. But, they'll still do okay on their own. They'll still bring in money. So, Deadpool is kind of competing there with that film still. Yeah, so the future is interesting for Deadpool. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I don't know. I think it might be pushing it a bit too much, trying to do all the same stuff. Because Deadpool as a character, as a fourth wall breaking character, works really well in comics, but it's a lot harder to do it in film. Because you can do it in, how long does it take you to read a comic? 20 minutes? 28-page comic? You take your time, go through it, about 20 minutes tops. You can sit there and digest that for 20 minutes, but to sit down for a 2-hour movie and to get all that same sort of stuff, but to be evenly paced and to get a great story and emotionally invested and get all those things you want to get out of a movie without feeling, too drawn out or too cheapened or it's too jokey or it's not jokey enough or it's too violent, it's not violent enough. But, it's kind of a real hard tightrope to walk, So it'll be interesting to see what happens. What would I give it out of 5? That's a bloody good question. Honestly, for me, the first movie is probably about a 3. So, at the moment, man, I'm really going to break my rule here. Normally, I give stuff a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But as of, Avengers Infinity War, I gave it a 3.75 and then a 3.5. So, I think this film, let's just be nice. At the moment, we'll say 4, but I think it's about we'll say 3.5. 3.5. Because it works better in some regards than the first, but then in others, not as much. So we'll give it a 3.5. Deadpool 2, 3.5 out of 5 from Jages. So go and see it. Give me your own opinion. Tell me what you think. Put down in the comments below whether you actually liked it or didn't like it, because I'm sure there'll probably be a lot of people out there who actually don't like this movie. I haven't really read any reviews in that yet or looked anything up, but I'll check up on that over the next week, and I'll get back to you next week to see how things are going with it. Yeah, let's wrap it up then. If you want to find us online, you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/BeardedGeeksPod. We're also on Twitter at Bearded Geeks Pod. We're also on Instagram at The Bearded Geeks. If you want to listen to the show, you can jump on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube to listen to the show. Please make sure to give us a like, or if you're on iTunes, leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star review if you want. That'd be bloody great. It actually really helps us. The more people we can get, if you're a casual listener and stuff, and you don't actually subscribe, just think about subscribing and that, because subscribers really help and likes really help. It sounds stupid, but all that stuff actually really does help. There's so much more content I want to do and so many different things I want to try and bring to you guys. But, we need more subscribers. We need more people to follow the show, to like the show, to subscribe to the show, to share the show, tell their friends. We need to get it round because, the more people we have following us, the more opportunities we'll have to do better content, to provide better content to you guys, different contents, different mediums, and, more often, we can do video stuff. We can do the weekly podcast. But, Bobby and Pat and I, we've got other ideas of things we want to do. We can really break loose and we can just run with it. We can do all these crazy ideas. We can try all these different things that we want to do. And, you'll hear from us more often. So, please consider subscribing. Tell your friends. Drop us a like. Comment below. Tell us what you do and don't like. Tell us if you like Deadpool. And, it all helps. And we do bloody appreciate it. Because, making a podcast is really a labor of love, and it is a massive grind. Like, you really just got to stick with it and stay at it. So thanks everyone who does tune in and listen and likes and shares and subscribes and comments. Love it. Love yous all. Appreciate it. I'm going to wrap it up here. That's been Jages, Deadpool 2, 3.5 out of 5. Got some great stuff coming up in the next week or two. Hopefully Maz will be here next week. We're hoping next week, but that's a tentative next week at the moment. But we'll see. It's definitely coming up in the next few weeks. But yeah, first ever female guest host. It's going to be cool. We're going to have a lot to talk about. So hopefully tune in for that. Thanks everyone. We'll see you all next week on the Bearded Geeks. Hey!